Hello team. Okay, so today for our PLC we're going to discuss the article that EdSource printed. Okay, so it discusses the growth in the math test scores. So Ms. Kim, will you please talk about what changed? What was the implementation that happened in order to obtain this increase?
That's an excellent question. Initially what we did is we noticed that specifically in our subgroup of Hispanic and Latino students, we found that there was a deficit in their learning compared to other students. So we wanted to make sure that that achievement gap was not there. So what we did is we did a book study in our professional developments throughout the 2018-2019 school year. To do that, we read a chapter a month, and then we talked about that chapter. We also used Corwin resources because they have excellent videos and resources online for free. So we read, we discussed, we watched videos of teachers actually utilizing the methods and strategies and skill sets that we had talked about. And then at that moment in time, then we came back as a team, we worked through it, how does that look in our classroom with our students, and made a lot of differences within our teaching strategies, our outcomes, and specifically in the way our students interacted with math.
Do you want to grab the book, because it's right there that we did, so that you can kind of wear a
One of the things thank you. I was not getting past the green. One of the things I think that when you look at students, when you look at a specific demographic, what we were looking specifically for was that we knew the language component was missing from our math instruction. So we had to put that language instruction back into it, and what did it actually look like? So what we did is we chose to make sure that we made it visible learning, that there was more collaboration, and it was specifically planned, that we knew that we had to be attentive on our purpose, so we didn't create just a content objective, we also created a language objective and a social objective. The language objective working with the vocabulary specific to learning, and the social objective so the students had an opportunity to talk about their solution and the way in which they grasp the new learning. And those two things in particular made the largest differences for our students, and especially for our Hispanic students.
That is excellent. So the scores indicate that in the growth was within a 5-year span, it more than doubled. So clearly, spending the time in the trainings and the viewing of videos and discussing it amongst teachers it worked. Yes.
And just to segue or to add on to that, so these scores are not last year's scores, they're the previous year's scores. So last year's scores are just becoming out right now, and they're embargoed, but because I have a private preview, I can say that the scores have increased even more.
Wow.
So yes, substantially, I would say. So now it's almost like the real work starts, when you say?
Well, I think and I agree 100% with that. I think that what's difficult at this moment in time, and maybe a little frightening, and one of my largest concerns is we've worked so hard to achieve. However, once you achieve, you have to stay there. So we have to motivate and inspire to keep this amount of effort going so that our children can receive the instruction at this level in which they're receiving it. And that takes a lot of planning, takes a lot of instructional insight and strategies, and it also takes a lot of reinforcement from the administration to make sure that the teachers feel that they have the tools necessary to do what they need to do.
Which is, in a sense, the support, right?
Right,
It's
yes.
important that they feel supported.
Right, exactly. It's very important.
So now, that was a really good segue into moving forward. So now we've obtained this increase of math scores, right? The achievement gap is closing. There's only now 16% based on this report. So now moving forward, what are some of the modifications that need to occur so that we continue, like you said, to freshen it up, to keep it updated? And
the first thing I think that happened, which was probably the most eye-opening, was that when we were going through the book study, we realized that the curriculum we had at the moment, which was Go Math, wasn't meeting our curriculum needs. So what we had to do is we had to kind of look back as our instructional strategies had changed. However, our curriculum hadn't. So once we got into it, 2 teachers on staff, myself and another teacher, said that we would make the change in the middle of last year. So in December of the 2018-2019 school year, we made the change from Go Math to Engage New York, which is an online source. So it's free, which is really interesting and wonderful. But it also is through Eureka Math, which then when we went back and looked at how Eureka Math it can be judged and evaluated against other curriculums. It's the #1 curriculum for K-8 so in the nation. So we knew that at that moment in time that we'd made a pretty good choice, but we hadn't utilized it yet. So we used it all last year. Huge improvement. I mean, half of last year, huge improvement. So what we chose to do this year is that everyone K-5 is Engaged New York with 6th, 7th, and 8th doing CPM, because we never saw a problem or a change in the CPM. The CPM was actually just making excellent increases. So one of the biggest things is this year is our first year with implementation of Engage New York. So we'll see if that keeps us where we need to be. So that's one of our steps.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, not to change it, but I also want to get your perspective as an administrator. How, so not having to purchase curriculum also has an impact, right? Because now maybe you have funds to maybe send someone to one of these trainings or whatnot.
That's correct. I mean, we do have that, or to, so generally what would happen is Kim would go or I would go, and then we bring that information back. And so, yeah, not having that added expense is really helpful. And then the fact that it is all online, it can be downloaded, it's just a lot easier than, you know, a workbook, and it's, you know, the instructional strategies are there, and the rigor is there. And so
one thing.
even if we had to pay for it, it would still be well worth it.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And we did not choose it because of it's free, because of the cost.
No.
Excuse me, we chose it because of the rigor.
Right.
I love that.
Right.
Because I did read that in the report that that was one of the things that was missing.
It was.
A lot of holes in the other
Yeah.
curriculum.
There was too much support and scaffolding that was provided for the students, so there wasn't enough opportunity for the children to have what we feel strongly about. Visible learning speaks to it, and that is productive struggle. Please forgive me. And productive struggle is very important for all students, but specifically for those students who might be having a little bit of difficulty with math, because it gives them a little bit more time and opportunity to understand their strategies for solutions and solving their problems. So it's a really important part of it all is the productive struggle, and Go Math did not give enough opportunities for that, and Engage New York does.
And I love, the piece that I love about this is the social piece.
Yes.
Because when a student is able to discuss and say what needs to be done, they're even ingraining it more into their brain, and then teaching a peer.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I love that.
Exactly.
Is there anything else that needs to change or that needs to be either added or modified?
Yes. So we started today. So generally Kim does most of the professional development, and then I do probably pretty minimal since I started here, and so we're trying to change that up a little bit. And so what we did today was we broke up our teachers. I'm working with 3rd through 8th grade. Kim has K2. And what I'm doing is we're looking at the CASP scores from last year and looking at, because those give us trends, and so breaking it down. So today the teachers, I broke it down for them where it has their claims, it has their assessment targets, and so then they see where traditionally the students maybe are scoring lower in those areas. And then the teachers now have been tasked with this next 6-week MTSS time chunk that they have, is they pick an assessment target or 2 if they're aligned to the same standards. They're going to target specifically those assessment targets, those standards. In that MTSS time, they're giving a pre-assessment and a post-assessment.
I love that.
We do too.
Yeah, and so, you know, the idea is yes, these scores aren't the same students that they have, but these scores show trends in instruction.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So that's so in a sense tag teaming the professional development at this small school.
Exactly.
And then you mentioned MTSS. Is that one of the things that also changed, or is going to change?
We received the MTSS grant 3 years ago. We're at the end of the grant system, but we won't change any of the practices. So through the MTSS program, we were able to reorganize our way of thinking about intervention and how we provide it for our students, making sure that all students were receiving instruction that was targeted specifically to them. So with the MTSS model in mind, we have now changed our delivery, our instruction, and our intervention, and that's been a 3-year program, which has been terrific because we change it up every 6 weeks. We come together and we have our PLCs. We come together and we determine which student needs this intervention, which student needs that. So it's small group instruction specifically designed for that student at that need at that time, depending on the assessments that have been done previously.
Excellent. Well, I can't wait to attend our next PLC to dive into those deep discussions about specific students. But today I wanted to dive into the good news and then how we move forward with staying in the blue, right?
Yeah. And I think that those two pieces are how is part of our plan of, staying in the blue and moving forward. And, it's going to really come down to, so it's not just the teachers analyzing the work, but then the whole staff as a whole really looking at, what we're doing for students, who can support whom, because what we had today, because they're using the CASP scores, so they're more grade level specific, but they're talking to the grade level before and the grade level after. So they're really talking about not just what those scores are, but they're also talking about behaviors of students.
Yes.
So we're trying to deal with the social, emotional, and if there is a language piece, we're also talking about that. So all of those pieces combined, we hope, are going to keep us where we want to be.
Forward.
Yeah.
Right, and providing for the parents and our stakeholders. So we also have Math Night coming up on January 15th, I believe, which is a night where the students present to their parents. It's a beautiful opportunity.
I love that.
It's awesome, and so it's it is very well attended, and the students become the instructors, and they stand on the back side of the table instructing those who come to their area, and it's very well received by the parents. The children are very excited about the process, and it's in the evening. So Math Night has been fabulous. It's for all stakeholders also. So
It makes them the expert on that topic.
it does.
Yes.
It gives them an opportunity
really
to kind of share what they know, and they know a lot. So
Absolutely.
gives them that opportunity.
Absolutely. So, in conclusion, before we wrap it up, moving forward for our team, so I know we're gonna make these changes. How else is our team going to? So when we come back for the next meeting, what is each one of us tasked with?
Well, I think that we will be looking at the data because the teachers have, so for the 3rd through 8th, they have a process where they have to reflect and respond. So they research the data, they are going to respond to that, which that piece is putting in place what they're going to be doing and how they're going to be instructing. And then there's a reflection piece of, did it work, did it not work? And I think that when we come back, we need to take that data and we need to also discuss behaviors and whether or not there are any language or any, this is a good opportunity for us to also look at, do we need SSTs? Is there more going on? And as you know, being our school psychologist, that we do have some students that have had some trauma that does affect their learning, and so we really want to, especially as recent as it's happened, is to, as we're doing this first 6-week cycle, is to also look at those are their behaviors compounding because of the trauma, and because that's going to affect their ability to grasp the content, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, absolutely. As always, we have to look at the whole child.
Right.
And what we notice is that we might have the instructional strategies in place and the curriculum in place. if we don't have the student in place, if we don't have all of them with the process, then the learning can't be achieved.
Correct.
However, we are trying as best we can to eliminate all those barriers and provide the students with a place where they feel safe and secure, and then the learning can occur.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, and that's why you're an integral part of the team, is
Absolutely.
because we need that
Expertise.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's what I'm here for. Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much for this opportunity.
Okay.